Welcome to this class. We're grateful for the technology that allows us to provide virtual training like this.
Tony lives right there. Yeah, well, it's actually Dad's house, but Tony's buying it from him. So,
I didn't know because today I drove by, just periodically I drive to that neighborhood to see the status of homes and stuff like that.
the old gray one?
Yeah. Well, I saw his old gray one, I see that one a lot, but I saw his new Ranger.
Oh, okay.
He normally drives parking like that.
So Tony bought the old gray one,
And then it died
motor went out.
immediately.
Yeah. So they've been negotiating that.
We're supposed to be calling Pickapart to come and get it.
It's just, it's a point that it's
Too expensive.
Well, he had that for a long time, and he,
Oh, very well.
Oh, no. That's the,
oh, it is.
Oh, it is, and you have the
Oh,
engine
see.
rebuilt.
we had the engine rebuilt a couple of times, and we bought, two white ones, and,
It's two levels for
two
cars.
lines that. It's loaded and ground.
It's
and
little,
it has
it's fancy.
road,
Right.
and it's four-wheel drive,
So, yeah.
and enough of the bed that it was a little truck.
Yeah, he ate some too.
And it goes.
prayer to control my mouth.
Consider it done.
Yeah, right. That's a few rosaries worth right there, yeah, right?
Yeah, we already have an over-under on that. So Barry, these are our microphones.
Hey, Dad.
And you just push it once, or push it and hold it, comes on green.
Mhm.
Here
If
you
wanna
were over
mute it,
Tony's
just
today.
push it once, it goes amber, it's muted.
I said, "We're
If you wanna
over
turn it off,
Tony's
push and hold.
Mute is red.
Yeah, mute is the red.
today."
You know that?
Yeah, I think so.
This,
And if not, I always wish I had that.
this is our video,
Okay.
and the top button is square. If you push it twice, it starts it.
You're running AV, aren't you?
I can if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Bishop's gonna be up there, cause if we need
Right.
to review it, we can, but we can start and stop. And if we have any glitches, it'll work us through that. But top square button.
Is
Push
what?
it twice quickly, it starts it. Twice quickly, it stops
Are
it.
you taking your sliders out of the
Good with that?
gray truck and putting them in the orange truck?
Yes.
We're just gonna keep these over there for now, okay?
Yeah.
Is, Tony?
If you wanna be up here, I can rearrange things
No.
a little bit, but I thought you guys wanted
I'm
to be
just setting
down
up my
below.
junk, brother.
Awesome. Junk setting 101.
Mhm. Today was a 2 throwdown day.
Really?
Yeah.
One for the books, huh?
The other guy,
Or
then on top of it, as if they just couldn't get any better, Sarge's like, he pulls me in, hey, we're really short, so we need you to go upstairs and serve chow. And I'm like, chow's at 4:30.
You're live on YouTube, just so you know.
Oh,
You haven't said anything.
I'm glad.
Problem, but
That's,
I'm
see,
letting
that's,
you know.
you know what, I like you, man. Because, you, unlike some of my friends, don't give me the warning.
We're live on
Hey, we're on
YouTube now.
speakerphone.
We're
Yeah.
live on YouTube now or when you
Yes,
start?
you are now. I went ahead and pushed start, so. We're on YouTube. Going out live.
Yeah, but you know, when you come home, you're like, whew.
So I purchased this the other last night because it was just like.
This is not one we wrote on.
Not morning, but welcome, how's that? I'm so used to being at work,
Evening.
greeting everybody.
Hello, brother and sister Thompson. Welcome. Brother Dickinson, thank you for coming. Now they're starting to trickle in. I was worried it was gonna be one of those nights. Brother Harrison, how's everything going? Well, how you doing? I'm doing great. Good to see you.
You want me to turn around?
How are you?
Yeah.
Welcome, brothers and sisters. Do you hear this? Yeah? Okay. Thank you for coming this evening. This is something that we've been wanting to do for a while, and probably something that's beneficial that we cover periodically as well. We're going to start the meeting with a prayer from Brother Chad Dickinson. I just want to recognize the bishop who's presiding and serving two roles. Most importantly is our AV specialist tonight. And then the instructors are going to be myself and Barry and Brother Sam Cole. And we'll get a little bit more into that following our opening prayer. Chad?
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful we could gather here this evening. We're grateful for this building, which provides a safe space for us to do this. We are grateful for those who are going to provide instruction for us, and we ask that they be blessed, that they can deliver a message that is memorable. We ask that Thy Spirit might guide us, that we might be able to find a spot for this information, as it is very critical. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Chad. So most of you may know we have an emergency committee that's been formed within our elders' quorum. And I'm going to just introduce the members of that committee. It's chaired by Brother Eric Quarterman, and then Barry Lagan is over the security portion. Sam Cole is over the EMS portion, and Randy Ayers is over our communication portion. Um, and how the rest of the evening's going to go is the church has produced a really good video, which can be found in lds.org under, and you'll see it, but if you want to review it again in the future or share it with members of your family that aren't here with you tonight, it's entitled Church Meetinghouse Security. I'm going to circulate a handout which goes along with it. If you can just pass that around. Take one per family. There's a limited amount. But we're going to start out with that video, and that's going to cover and outline a lot of what we're going to cover. We may pause it during the video if there's something that we want to emphasize. And then following that video, then we're going to talk a little bit about our building and its floor plan. And we're going to go into a little bit more depth about run, hide, fight, which is really something that we need to be familiar with if we're confronted with an active shooter, okay, or some type of violent incident. So we'll start there, and then we'll conclude after the video and after the questions with Brother Cole, who's going to go over some triage and EMS related to active shooter. Our focus is going to be a little bit more tonight on active shooter rather than disturbances. We're going to go over disturbances, but we want to focus a little bit more on active shooter. The reason for that is because I'm sure you're all aware, but we as a church have been touched recently by the incident in Michigan at one of our church houses, but also at the incident that occurred up at Utah Valley University with Charlie Kirk. There's probably lots of us here who have children that have attended, or you may have attended, or you've spent some time up there in Provo and been around that campus. Okay, and so both of those incidences kind of touched home with our LDS community and in our ward community. So with no further ado, we're going to start with this video. If you have questions, save them till after the video. Okay, if you have a pen and want to jot them down, otherwise we'll address those following the video. The video is about 25 minutes long.
tool that each of us have.
With that, here are some basic security recommendations that you can use and think about for church meeting houses. First of all, follow the promptings of the Spirit, as Tony mentioned. Be aware of your surroundings. No one knows what's more normal or more common for that meeting house than you do. Pay attention to what is around you. Because you are so familiar with your meeting house, you will know when things are out of the ordinary. If you see something, say something. Don't be afraid to report suspicious activities. If it feels off or not right, it probably is. The Spirit is teaching you or telling you something's not right. Report such things to local church leaders. Avoid being alone in a church building. If possible, always have somebody with you rather than being alone while inside a meeting house. This especially applies to the safety of women and youth. Lock doors once you are inside. Also, church leaders often deal with financial documents and other sensitive information. Make sure that these items are stored in a secure location and they are not left out on desks, but that they are put away into drawers and locked, and making sure also that your offices are locked when unattended. Also, manage the building access and key control. This is important because we need to know how many keys are out there and who has them. If possible and if reasonable, based on risk, electronic keys could be used, and they're easier to manage than hard keys. If you see the signs of a break-in, if you arrive at the church and you see a broken window, do not enter, or a broken door. It's unsafe to enter a building that's been broken into. Back away and call the police. Let them handle it, and then let local leaders know. Members should lock their vehicles and also hide valuable items. Do not leave anything of value on seats or in plain sight inside your vehicle. If valuables must be stored in your car during church meetings, secure such items in the trunk or out of sight before you arrive at your destination. Also, have an escape plan. Understand where the doors are, where all exterior doors are located. This is true of church meeting houses or of other buildings that you may frequent. Know how to get out. It's always important to know what options you have and how you can get there quickly, which options may be the closest for doors leaving the building. This is true for a fire, a natural disaster, or a criminal event.
Now, many today are worried about an active shooter scenario. But at a church meeting house, what is more likely to happen is someone attempting to take over a meeting or saying inappropriate things at the pulpit at a fast and testimony meeting, and then refusing to leave. If this happens, we must be respectful, never invade his or her personal space, and most importantly, do not touch them. If the individual is at the pulpit, turn off the microphone. Tell that person that his or her comments are inappropriate for that setting. Ask the person to stop speaking and sit down, or, if needed, to leave the building. If appropriate, invite the person to meet with you in the foyer, but never behind a locked door or a closed door. If the person is non-compliant, end the meeting and excuse the congregation. Use the phrase, brothers and sisters, because of the action of this individual, we are no longer able to worship the Savior peacefully. Please go home and continue to worship with your family together. Remember that the event is likely being recorded. Do not attempt to physically restrain or remove the individual or the person that's doing the recording. Trespass this individual. If the person has been asked to leave church property but refuses, inform him or her that law enforcement officers may be notified, and that he or she may be trespassed and arrested for trespassing. Call the police. Inform them of details and that the individual has been trespassed from church property. This is a term that police personnel understand very well.
Also, if a person enters a church meeting house with a weapon and begins to rob members, comply with the subject's demands. Statistics show that by and large, victims who comply with criminals' demands during the commission of a robbery are not harmed. Robbers typically do not want to harm you, but they want your valuables. So do not argue or act defiant or confrontational. If you keep a calm demeanor, this will mitigate the risk of the criminals becoming violent. If you argue or act defiant, the opposite is true. So relinquish demanded valuables without hesitation. Right now, it is important for you to decide that if you ever get robbed, whether you are home or traveling or abroad, overseas, whatever the case may be, that you will give up your valuables without hesitation. Family heirlooms, expensive jewelry, etc., should not cause you to hesitate. Material possessions can largely be replaced, but your life cannot. After the intruder leaves, call the police. This probably goes without saying, but it's important that we provide police with a detail of events and help them create a paper trail in order that they may stop this particular criminal or group of criminals from committing the same crime again. Also, it's incumbent upon us to be good citizens in reporting those crimes. Also, contact your priesthood leaders and the church security department. Priesthood leaders, stake presidents, area 70s, all should be informed. Also, let us know at church security so that we can keep track of this. We keep a database of criminal incidents, and this helps us to understand risks at meeting houses and crime trends as well.
Because many seem to be concerned about the risk of an active shooter scenario, we have included in this class the church's official policy for the carrying of firearms on church property. Here it is. Churches are dedicated for the worship of God and as havens from the cares and concerns of the world, with the exception of current law enforcement officers. Carrying lethal weapons on church property, concealed or otherwise, is prohibited. Now, it's important to understand the dichotomy of this statement. There are two separate statements here. First, our churches are meant to provide a peaceful environment for church members. And second, it outlines who is authorized to carry firearms at church property, which is only current law enforcement officers. This means local and federal officers, not retired officers, but those who are currently employed and certified law enforcement officers only. The dichotomy comes when church leaders may need, because of a specific risk, to ask a law enforcement officer in the ward or stake to attend certain meetings to mitigate some sort of risk. We need to make sure that our effort to keep the meeting and members safe does not infringe on the first statement in this policy, which is to maintain an environment where members can feel the Spirit of the Lord. If a police officer shows up in a police uniform and creates a situation where members are asking questions and worried about their safety, this defeats the first goal of this policy. Member law enforcement officers who happen to be assisting church leaders are encouraged to wear Sunday best and conceal their firearms under their suit jackets.
The church security department espouses run, hide, fight, a protocol used for an active shooter when trying to protect visitors at church meeting houses from the threat of this incident. There are several real-life examples of this philosophy working and saving lives. Running is by far the best chance that anyone has in an active shooter of surviving. Hiding is second. And as a last resort, fighting also can save lives. We'll give a pretty startling example of this in a minute. But first, let's watch a video that was put out by the Houston, Texas Police Department, which shows exactly what run, hide, fight is.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Again, let me reiterate, the best way to survive an active shooter situation by far is to run. If you can't run, find a place to hide and be thinking how to implement weapons. Chairs, hymn books, belts, anything you can find are effective defensive tools. Anything else around you may work just as well. It's important to point out that run, hide, fight is not a linear concept. In other words, maybe fighting is the best option. At other times, hiding might be the best option. The point is that if you can responsibly and reasonably run away from danger, then running is the best option to survive. And that's where you should start. But if running doesn't provide the best chance of survival, then hiding or fighting should certainly be considered. A member of our team attended a seminar in which a testimony of one of the survivors of the 2007 Virginia Tech mass shooting was there and shared her experience. This woman had been shot but survived, and she spoke to a group of security specialists about the ordeal. She told the group that she was in a classroom when the shooting began, and that she and her classmates hid inside a classroom while listening to shots that rang out down the hallway. She said that eventually the shooter entered the classroom where she and her classmates were hiding underneath their desks. The shooter proceeded to shoot students as he entered the room and as they hid under their desks one by one. She said something to the effect, "I was just thinking that I was waiting for my turn to die." The training many of us received growing up in public schools was that very thing, to hide under your desk in case of an earthquake or another natural disaster. And that was what our generation and older generations were taught, and that was our default mindset. Today, with active shooter situations becoming more and more common, we, the security industry at large, are trying to change that mindset. In this situation in Virginia Tech, if students had been taught run, hide, fight, they might have, even though they felt pinned down, have been able to coordinate their attack, implement weapons, and fight this individual when he came in the room. This would likely have incapacitated the shooter and prevented the loss of so many lives inside that classroom.
Church security is a resource. There's an area security manager assigned to every church area in the world. We are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I can help you understand what resources you have available to you and how you can protect your ward and yourselves from disgruntled individuals. There's strength in numbers. Leaders should always have multiple priesthood holders present when meeting with an unstable, potentially violent, or problematic person, whether that person is a church member or not. Understand verbal trespass and persona non grata. Church meeting houses and other church properties are technically private property. As such, visitors are welcome so long as they abide by local laws and common customs. Local church leaders represent the property owners. In other words, much as I am the owner of my own home, if I do not want someone on my property because of their actions, I can then have them removed. If the person refuses to stop his or her inappropriate behavior, you as a church leader have the right to trespass that individual from church property. Now, if the person is a repeat offender, church leaders can decide if they want to initiate legal action and issue what is called a persona non grata. This is a letter to an individual. It's essentially a restraining order against a person from visiting specific locations, either during a certain time frame, like 1 month or 1 year, or indefinitely. The letter also outlines how the individual can then have the P&G designation removed. Your church security representative can help you with this process. Member tools access can also be revoked. If a church member feels, or a church leader feels, that an individual is at risk to other church members, and they do not want them to have access to member addresses or information, their member tools access can be restricted. Again, your church security representative can assist you with this process. GIR reports and police reports create a necessary paper trail. GIR stands for Global Incident Reporting System, and this is our in-house database for security incidents. We keep track of security issues and concerns that occur on church property or impact church interests through this reporting system. Additionally, it is important, when applicable, for your local police to be aware of potential criminal situations. They will want to document interactions with people, especially problem people, and a police report helps them to understand trends and create a paper trail in order to paint a complete picture. Please also notify church security for all criminal and security issues. If needed, ask a member police officer for assistance. On occasion, church leaders may feel that there's a reason to have a police presence at the church meeting. Usually, church leaders have law enforcement personnel that are located in their respective wards or stakes. Depending on that officer's department policy, Such may be able to attend a meeting as a security precaution to help prevent a certain security risk. When this is necessary, discretion is paramount. Keep such activities confidential and ask the officer to conceal their weapon. Dress should typically be Sunday best. Remember, the churches are dedicated for the worship of God and as havens from the cares and concerns of the world. Contact your church security representative for assistance.
Now, law enforcement and security personnel use an analogy about sheep, sheepdogs, and wolves to explain their roles, that of criminals and the rest of society. Clearly, this analogy depicts the wolves, i.e. the criminals, as those that want to harm the sheep. The sheepdogs are depicted as security personnel who have the capability to use violence to protect the sheep, but would never actually harm the sheep. In the security field, there's a metric for personal awareness known as Cooper's colors. Jeff Cooper was a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps and is the author of Cooper's colors. The colors he outlines are white, yellow, orange, and red. White level is relaxed and completely unaware. That's my mode when I'm home watching TV. This is okay while relaxing at home, but when walking down a big city street, white mode is very vulnerable. And that's the sheepdog the sheep category. That's where the sheep reside. The next level is yellow, which is relaxed but aware. This is where we'd like you to be when attending church, rather than acting like an unsuspected sheep. Right now, I suspect that most are probably closer to white mode while at church than to yellow. Orange level is carefully reviewing a potential threat, and then red level is taking necessary actions to stop a problem or flee from it. Those are Cooper's colors. The point of this training isn't necessarily to make you all sheepdogs or to help you fight off criminals, but rather to give you some security tools so that you are not unaware wandering sheep. Be aware of your surroundings, and if you see something, say something.
This training is certainly not intended to scare anyone, but rather help you to be prepared and go through scenarios in your mind in order to be ready in the unlikely event that one of these security incidents occur. President Harold B. Lee said, "When you are on the Lord's errand, you are entitled to the Lord's help." Elder Jeffrey R. Holland shared the following reassuring words: "We must never, in any age or circumstance, let fear and the father of fear divert us from our faith and faithful living. There have always been questions about the future, but that is all right. This is the plan. It will be okay. Just be faithful. God is in charge. He knows your name and He knows your need."
This final slide shows the 24-hour church security phone numbers for church leaders in the U.S. and Canada. This number will put you in touch with our Global Security Operations Center, and they will be able to track down the area security representative that corresponds to your location. Also, inside of LCR, which is the Leader and Clerk Resources page, there's a link to church security in there, and it provides you with many different resources and things that can be helpful to you. One of the things that it provides is an opportunity to report. There's a link in there that will take you to an email where you can email things that are less urgent to church security. If it's urgent, call us. If not, maybe send it in an email. Additionally, we are witnesses that the Lord is in charge of His work. We have seen it. He oversees and He protects this church. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Bishop. Any immediate questions that come to your mind after finishing that video before we move on? Bishop?
I was sitting here, I wondered if, has anybody ever used that door? I've never been through that door. Anybody ever opened that door?
Yes.
Okay, it does open. Good.
Not screwed shut.
And since you brought that up, because that was one of the things we're going to go more into, does anybody know how many exits and entrances we have in the building, just off the top of your head? 6. That's right, 6. So we have 2 on the 5th Street side, We have 2 on the east side. We have 2 in the alley, right? 1 here and 1 to the rear of the cultural hall. And that's our 6. There are no entrances or exits on the west side of the building. Start scoping the building out. I mean, a lot of us have been in here and attending this building, some from our childhood, right? But we need everybody in our ward community to become more observant. Some acronyms we use in law enforcement is keep your head on a swivel. JDLR, if something just doesn't look right, then bring it to somebody's attention so that we can look into it. Don't ignore it. It's just like with the gift of the Spirit. As small as it might be, if that hair's standing up on the back of your head, then say something, bring it up. In today's day and age, we can't risk overlooking even the little things. Okay. And any other questions immediately that you have regarding the video? We're going to get a little bit more into the active shooter portion. Yeah.
So the church policy says carrying of firearms, is that correct?
They do. They talked about their policy in carrying a firearm.
What about other weapons?
Corey, can you
I think
Yeah.
we'll circle back to that.
What the question was?
The question
is-
was, is the church has a policy against carrying concealed weapons. But she asked, what about other weapons? And I think we've actually discussed that, and we'll get back to that. We'll circle back to that, I promise. Promise, before tonight's done. And just so in case you came in late, my name is Barry Lagan, and I just wanted you guys to know, it was kind of fun when we put this together. Not fun in a weird way, but fun. We were picking up a car, and so Corey's jumped in the front seat, and we started spitballing ideas about this meeting. And so we actually jotted it down on a little yellow piece of paper, notebook paper. It was enlightening as I filled it all out. I made an outline of it. I sent it to Corey. I'm like, this is going to be awesome. And then Corey's like, hey, have you seen this video? Because this video almost went line for line right down our outline, and it was prepared by the church. And I just want to say, because it does segue off the weapons, this was provided by the church for the members. You know, this video. So it makes me feel great to know that they have a standard and a policy that we need to adhere to and we need to work from. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Anyways, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I just also, because Corey's bounced this off me in that conversation and several times, and they touched base on it right at the end of the video. Some of the things that we may discuss tonight might be unnerving to some folks, but don't fall or don't let him, the father of fear, drive you away. Our concern was, hey, if we talk about too much scary stuff, maybe people will say, that's it, I'm not coming to church, I'm watching it via the Zoom link that Bishop has. Don't let the father of fear win this. That's absolutely what they were trying to express there at the end. Anyways, just some thoughts.
And I will just add to that a little bit. Barry and I and Sam come from a world that not everybody sees. And it's our job to kind of keep it that way. But we live in that, when he talks about the Cooper's colors, we live in that orange and red realm every minute that we're at work. So sometimes it's a challenge for us to come out of that and be more relaxed. So if we slip, we're not trying to be callous or anything like that, but that's our world. So any other questions relative to the video while it's fresh on your mind?
Have there been any updates since the most recent house like these?
Updates from the church? So, doing what I did, I was often privy to debriefings. So it's hard being removed from that, not getting that kind of information. So the only update officially that we've received as a bishopric is related to the securing of the building and the doors. What the suggestion is that The front door will be the only door, the main entry will be the only door that will remain unlocked during meetings. All the other doors will be locked, and you'll only be able to exit through them. Okay? Have you received any other official updates from the church, Bishop?
Not official updates, but we do regularly receive please be vigilant reminders.
Does that answer your question, Shauna? But we've all been touched by those two recent occurrences, right? And this video was produced back in 2019, so that's 5-6 years ago, right? Let me ask you a question. Well, let me ask you a question. Anybody here that works in the schools in our community, would you just raise your hand or has something to do in the schools? Well, you did, didn't you?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he mentioned kind of the evolution of what our students are taught, right? And that most of us come from a generation where we were taught to duck and hide, but not because of a threat necessarily, but more as a result of a natural disaster. So he brought up a date of about 2007. But Brother Barlow, how long were you in the education profession? 29 years. Okay. So you started a little bit before that. Do you remember or recall when they started teaching active shooter in the schools? Or that type of response? And it's changed and evolved over the years, right?
Considerably over the time. You know, even the whole point about where to go, the egresses. One of the questions I had about that too is because we face the same thing in the high schools. You have so many perimeter doors that if you hear a knock on the door, the question is, should somebody go and allow somebody to come through those perimeter doors, even though you have one main entrance? So
That is a great question.
That is a great question.
And ironically,
that can happen all the way around
Corey
this
brought it
building,
up.
too.
And it's complicated
Yeah.
because in a church environment, what are we supposed to be? Inviting, welcoming, right? So what comes into play even more in those situations? Those feelings and promptings that you're getting about what you're seeing, right? Is the hair standing up on the back of your neck, right? And I'll go even further because these doors are locked. And I'll give you an example. Is anybody familiar with the Vivaldi Robb Elementary active shooter that took place back in 2022? Fairly recent one.
Probably.
Familiar with that? All right. So there were some problems with how law enforcement responded to it, and that kind of garnered a lot of attention. But do you know how the shooter gained access to the school? Well, through a door, yeah. Through a door. They had a policy in place that all of the doors were supposed to remain locked except for their front entrance. One of the teachers was bringing some things in and propped the door with a rock.
There's a lawsuit going on right now. So they have video of that teacher. She pulled on the door to secure the door, and law enforcement said we have video of her propping
Right,
the door.
and I was gonna get to
So
that.
she pulled the door, she
Right.
made sure it was shut. Somebody beside her had actually unlocked it, so she didn't prop it open. That's the narrative the media's trying to say to blame this teacher.
Right, right. And I have it here, and they correct it and that's where I was getting to. Originally, I think it was propped. She had shut it, and the door did not secure behind her. Is that how you
Yeah.
recall it? Yeah.
But the media's trying to say she propped it open.
Right.
The video's clear that she pulled it shut.
Right. So I'm going to read you just from the excerpt so you get it. It said initial reports from Texas officials stated that the gunman entered the school through a back exterior door that a teacher had propped open with a rock. However, this information was later corrected. The investigation reviewed through review of the surveillance that the teacher had propped the door open with a rock to carry food from the car into the building. Upon realizing the danger and seeing the gunman approach, the teacher, sorry, I can't read this, removed the rock and closed the door. The door did not lock as it was supposed to automatically, allowing the gunman to enter the building unobstructed.
There was an ongoing lawsuit.
Yeah.
Because it ruined her life, because they said, oh, you propped open this.
Exactly.
She's countersuing right now.
Right, you're exactly right. And the point that I'm trying to get to is that it's customary for us here to hold doors open and to prop doors open as we load things in, or, you know what I mean? And my point in bringing it up is we have to be more cognizant of that and kind of get ourselves out of those customs or traditions that we've been used to all of these years and just be more attentive. And it's going to take time. There's going to be innocent lapses, just like this teacher. She had no intent of letting anybody in, and you just don't know. So my advice would be, if we're going to do that, try to do it in twos, where we can have someone stand and attend the door while you're carrying things in. But when it closes, don't just allow the door to close on its own, but either pull it shut or stand there until it does shut and double check that it is secure like it's supposed to. But you're absolutely right, Brother Harrison. Yeah, you're absolutely right with that.
If you have to prop a door, advise somebody that the door is propped. I was thinking about this when we were talking about this, was the Dutch oven cooking. We had that back door propped, we're running in and out of there, but we all were standing around the door. But the bottom line is, if you're running from a room with decorations or whatever it is, just let somebody know, hey, I've got this door propped. That would be a great, just now you have a second set of eyes on it. That's probably the best thing.
Sister Ely.
There's been times in the past when I needed to lock one of the doors going out, and if somebody was running and trying to get in, they would get in, because it takes me like 5 minutes to remember to figure out how to lock those doors, like the little pin thing or a tray. Usually Dave Corey has to come and lock it for me. I'm thinking, dang, maybe we should all have like a course or a little instruction on how to quickly lock those doors.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that, Corey, for the people online?
Yeah, Sister Ely says that some of our exterior doors are complicated to lock and unlock.
Well, they're not really.
Well,
complicated,
if you're not used to it, and we know how locks can be sometimes,
like it's got this little, you got to
right?
get it there and turn it.
And so maybe it would help to have somebody walk through it and give us a little in-service on how the door lock mechanisms work. And door lock mechanisms can get dirty and they can malfunction or stick, and so that's a frequent issue with them not working exactly like they're supposed to. So, good point. Did you have something, Brother Barlow?
I believe all of our doors, perimeter doors, are glass, is that correct?
They are.
So if somebody were knocking at the door and wanted entrance, what is your request of us? We can see who it is. I can see that it might be Kathy trying to come into the building.
Right. So you're going to have to use some common sense in it. You're going to have to use some common sense in it. If you can see that it's somebody that you recognize, that you know, then do that. But if you're walking up and someone's coming up behind you and you don't recognize them as you go into the door, and you don't feel right about the situation, you may want to send them around to the front. All right? Depending on your perception of the person, if you're reading the person and you're just getting a bad feeling, you're going to have to follow the Spirit in those situations, because, again, we're a church community, a church family, and we're supposed to be a welcoming community, but at the same time, we need to be cautious. And that's a balance that you're going to have to try to find. Does that help? Okay. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Kind of questions that I wouldn't want to answer, but I'm wondering how often the Lord moves. Because maybe not this building, but I've been in wars where everyone in there is come together.
And that's an important thing that they brought up in that, is we need to have more control over.
Please repeat the question.
Okay.
So that everybody online.
The question is, how much control do we have over who has keys? And probably getting to how many keys are out there, right? And that's something that's frequently brought up, and wards and stakes need to try to pay as close attention as they can to how many keys are out there. Because it's really easy. I mean, we lend them to each other, you know what I mean? And that's going to be a challenge. Right, right. And that's a challenge. And we're going to have to keep closer track of where those keys are. Yeah, and that's a good point.
They talked about electric locks. Their plan is in the future to change electric locks?
Here I haven't heard. So the question was, is there a plan here in our state to transition to electric locks on our doors?
There are several plans that have been considered for changing the locks in this building. The short answer is it's so expensive to do it that we're not going to be doing it. So we need to police as best we can the keys that we have. The short repair is going to be changing the locks on the exterior of the building and making them a key code or a key pass so that your phone will unlock the exterior doors. And then they'll leave all the interior ones keyed the way that they are so that they don't have to go through and do the whole building at the same time. It's going to be $20,000 to just do the doors. So it's something that the state is fully aware of, and they're hoping that the church will put forth the money to do that for the buildings, but it's not in the imminent future. But they are working on it.
I mean, the initial cost is more, but.
I agree with you.
Don't have to rekey. I mean, we switched all electric locks on all of our homes.
I agree with you completely, but they're dealing with literally thousands of buildings and multiplying that cost. So I think that I would guess that it's being done a little bit at a time, that they've started pilot programs to get to it, and that we will eventually get it, but it's just the cost that's holding it up.
And I do want to reemphasize that we are on the bottom end of the food chain here. When I worked at the security director at a synagogue and preschool, I made those calls. I was able to pull how much each lock was going to cost, and we went to a key swipe system because you can instantly deactivate Corey once he terminates. I don't have to worry about getting his key back from him. It's a great idea. But unfortunately, like I brought up, this video was provided by the church. There's church leaders that are saying, hey, no, we're not going to rekey the locks. No, we're not going to go to a key system. We're kind of just working with what we get. And I know that may be frustrating to some, but it simply is the reality of where we're at.
Sister Ayers.
I'm not involved right now with family history, but what's the policy of the Family History Center with the women that are there, and that's the door you come in on when they're there? You know, it used to be that if you were in the family history, you went to that door and opened it and walked in, and I presume it's not that way now.
If it's being used, I would say if it's being used, the building's being used as a family history office at that time and there's not regular meetings going on, Bishop, and that's something that probably needs to be a policy of the building, that door can be used as the entry without unlocking any other doors in the building. I would probably, if it's just, again, I wouldn't come to the family history office on your own. I would make sure that you're always there with someone else, okay? And if you can have a priesthood member here at the same time, that would be even more beneficial. I haven't been here when that's being used in that capacity, but do you normally leave that door open, or once you arrive and are in the family history office, do you then lock that door?
There's a doorbell,
Okay,
so it's usually locked, and you ring the bell.
great.
Perfect.
That's perfect.
And Brother Corey is usually here.
Okay.
Doorbell doesn't work, it's not.
If it doesn't work, then.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Does that answer your question, Sister Ayers?
I'm sort of.
Okay. Is
The
there any?
policy is, please don't be in the building by yourself ever, and have multiple people with you, and keep the doors locked, especially if you're not in here with a group.
Okay. Yes, they can. Yeah, you can use phone numbers. If the bell's not working, right, notify a member. You should know who's arriving. Do you usually know who's arriving to participate in family history before you arrive at the building? No? Okay. Okay. Brother Clothier.
Well, first of all, we're not always going to be in this ward, and we're going to have new people that are part of this meeting. So first of all, we have to use good common sense. We have to realize how many buildings and doors. We have to always be aware of other people that are going to move in and out of the ward. There's going to be changes in callings and keys get lost, etc. We just have to use common sense. Was it Michigan where we just had the last incident? He didn't have a key. He took care of it himself. So we just have to pay attention to what's going on around us, and we can't say, well, yeah, all the doors are locked, we're safe, because that's not necessarily true.
And that's a good point. We have to practice these techniques and make them habits and kind of get ourselves out of some of the habits that we used to have, which were more lax.
I'm glad you brought up practice.
We just need to tighten it up a little bit more. What's that?
I'm glad you brought up practice, because we're going to go on to a next one.
Because
which
practice makes perfect
yes.
in this.
So I just want you to think about something. We just said that the only entry during a sacrament meeting is going to be the front doors. Okay, we have about 50 people here. Average attendance at church is about 150. So if I were to say right now a threat came in through the front door and you were to go ahead and stand up and start thinking, where am I going to? Okay, see what I'm saying? Or am I even going to get up at all? I might just roll over and pin myself down here. Okay, but the idea is when you come to church on Sundays, when you come to different meetings, this is where he talked about don't stay in the code white. Code white is simply you're safe, you're secure, you feel, I'm good. I've seen some of us during sacrament meeting in code white. Had a long night, I get that. But the bottom line is that's not where we not want to be. We want to be that at night when we're home, our doors are locked, we're watching our last rerun before we fall into La La Land. When we come here, we need to be in code yellow, and that's just simply vigilant, not a vigilante, just vigilant. Relaxed awareness. Don't be, I've never seen that car before. Hey, take the hamster off the wheel, man. It's going to be fine. But also be aware of, hey, if I got to go, because tonight, unlike normal sacrament meetings, the back doors are closed to the gym, right? Or the cultural hall. So I'm obviously can't go that way. That would be a bad way. And some people right here on the end, and I can't wait to come to church on Sunday, because people that you 50 are going to be like, hey, man, I'm going to hang out up here today. You know? Suddenly, Bishop's going to see all 6 front rows full, because everybody's like, I'm squirting out the back door.
But if you have a regular seat in here, which a lot of people do, think that through.
Where are you going to go?
And every time when you come in and take that seat, something may change. Have a plan. Rethink it every time you come in and make it part of your routine.
So I'm just going to kind of go over some of the stuff you saw in the Run, Hide, Fight video. First of all, we just talked about it. Where am I going to run to? Okay, am I going to be able to run? Honestly? Exactly. And being honest with yourself and saying what you have. Sister Ely, what tools do I have at my that are available? She's going for that sacrament book, or the hymn book, and I love that. If somebody comes through the door and they get pelted with about 55 hymn books, it's going to be a change of venue. I guarantee you things are going to go differently than that fella had planned or female had planned. But what happens if it happens during the sacrament meeting? I want to ask, I don't know, I don't want to pick on anybody, but I'm the Brother Weber. What's the address here? 916 5th Street. So when I worked at the synagogue, we actually had a Shabbat service. It was Friday night. And all these people would come in. I'm like, hey, what's our address? And at first they were annoyed, but I'm like, if you don't know your address, calling and saying 911 and saying, I'm at the 5th Street Chapel, may or may not get you the response that you want. Okay? You got to start thinking about, and it's simple little things, but if I were to call and say, hey, I'm at 916 5th Street, there's an active shooter, and probably hang up your phone or silence your phone or whatever, like the video said, okay, it's a great idea. But honestly, what is the address? You know, these are the condition, these are the code yellow things that you can do to make yourself more vigilant, to make yourself more aware of your surroundings. Okay.
Hey, Barry, list a couple other things that they could use to defend themselves.
Did you guys know that you could defend
A
yourself?
belt,
Hey,
handbook,
shoes, belt. If you're one of those rodeo people with that big old 10-pound buckle, that thing is something to be. If you start yielding that, swinging that, that's awesome.
purses,
Okay.
bags,
Yes, you ladies, I love you, but your handbags are instruments of
Stanleys.
destruction. You can beat somebody to death with that. Just keep that wheel going, okay? But here's the thing. This is going to require you to take, again, just like, what's my phone number here? Where am I actually going to run to? What am I going to beat this person to death with? You know, that's getting into the fighting, but I just want to keep kind of going on to the, yeah, this guy's got, you know, combative club going there. I look around and it's funny because, and this is simply the reality of it. A teacher is going to go around and they're going to walk through a room and they're going to see things that would help them be a better educator, or to, oh man, I really like the way they communicated something like that, because that's the way I could get to my students. Law enforcement, I guarantee Corey and I sit there and scan the room like threat, that could be a potential threat, what's that, you know, and so you got to start to shift your mindset a little bit, not a vigilante, but a relaxed alertness. What could I use? I love hymn books. I'm not going to lie, I love hymn books. I like pepper spray. I'm a huge fan of it. Pepper sprayed hundreds of people in my lifetime. It is an effective tool. However, we start hosing somebody down at the entrance here, and we might have 30 congregants grabbing the floor trying to crawl out of here because they've now been gassed. And so it's just something to think about. Hey, am I here on an evening with a couple of ladies? That's a non-lethal weapon that I would consider. Am I here in the middle of a sacrament meeting, going to just open up with a can? No, probably not. Okay, fair enough.
But if we have any volunteers that want to be exposed, see how they can work through it.
Yeah, and if you ever want a good story, ask Jill about the time she was rocking with the stroller and the girls got a hold of the spray. That was a good one. Okay.
Brother Booth. Hold on a second. Brother Booth.
Did you have a question?
Well, I just not a question, but something I witnessed 5 minutes ago when you were doing your thing is you had everybody get up and run. And so I was looking, and Sister Graff and Sister Lawrence took off to that door, and there's no way I'm going behind them to that door. And so it may be good to have a couple of different ideas in your head, because you're not fast enough.
Yeah.
Have a couple of different ideas in your head as to what you could do, because if one thing gets clogged up, if there's 50 people running out that door, that's not going to be an egress anywhere.
And Brother Booth, I want to point out that that's exactly correct. And just like the video said, this is not linear. My first option isn't run, then, oh, that didn't work, I'm going to hide now. Like, oh, I took 2 steps, I'm too slow. I'm going to duck down here and hide. And then, well, the guy's creeping up on me, now it's time to fight. I might just turn and fight. I might just not run and just hide. It really isn't a linear thing. It's more of a triangle, and you're in the middle of it, and you're just going to pick your option.
And you're going to be under stress, but you're going to have to be flexible at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. So, again, I keep going back to this. We've decided to hide. Okay? We decided to call 911. We double-checked with the police department, because in the past, at the range, if you hit the wrong tower, it could be sending your 911 to Kingman or something crazy like that. So we checked, and our 911 towers are accurate as long as we're within the city or the town limits or buildings. They're like, yeah, it's going to go to our towers. Did you know you can text 911? something to think about. I want to be extra stealthy, extra quiet. I don't want to talk. I don't want my voice to be heard. 911, 916 5th Street, active shooter. Okay? So there's some things to think about. Also, I realize it's a sensitive subject. It was extra sensitive with me because that whole security thing about concealed weapons came up. Back 2 or 3 years ago, it was at stake. And so when they were talking about the dichotomy of stake security using law enforcement, our law enforcement has been used many, many, many times to patrol and to watch out for stake meetings and whatnot, other church activities. But law enforcement, active law enforcement, and I got my pants in a bunch because the bottom line was I retired. I'm like, hey, and I've been to several church leaders and I haven't gotten anywhere. Okay, so the bottom line is, if you think about carrying a concealed weapon, just understand that you are going against church policy, so there is going to be huge liabilities involved with that. Second is you are violating the law because there's a school less than 1,000 feet away, and whether you have a CCW permit or not, you cannot be within 1,000 foot of a school. Just saying. I realize there's color of the law and everybody could get into the details. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with anyone. I just simply want to say these are things that you may or may not have considered when you're like, well, I'm just going to carry anyways. Well, careful. I really want to emphasize being very, very cautious with that because you are shifting huge, huge liabilities to yourself. I realize that this may go against everything I'm wired to do, but hey, when the policy came out and when I attended the meetings, I'm like, huh. And Jill knows, I was like, man, I kind of feel naked. I mean, I had anxieties coming in here. But the bottom line is the rules are the rules and I'm just going to play by the rules. Okay? So I shifted to, going out in the back. I cut off a big palm stump and started practicing my hymn book throwing. Because I figure that's about the best thing I've got at this point. Okay? Yes. Yes. So, oh yeah, scriptures, hey man. But on a serious note, I just kind of wanted to touch base on that because I know people are like, yeah, but don't do that. Rationalization first, then it'll be repentance later. I guarantee it. So how do you navigate? And this is something else to consider. As you're exiting, there may be people moving towards the threat. Okay? So kind of think that through, like, hey, honestly, I normally sit in the back. They've changed my schedule, so I've really missed you guys, but I always sat in the back corner. Brother Corey always tried to close the door. I'm like, stop. Just stop doing that. Yeah, I really want to see that front door. But if something were to happen, I'm going to be moving with a whole bunch of haste, and that's why I was always telling Joe, move in there. I don't want her on the end, because I don't want to have to try to climb over my wife to get to a threat. So you also don't want to be too obstructive. And when you're moving, move with a purpose, get your head down, and keep going, but don't start clawing at people. And, hopefully, that's not the time for that. That's not the time for that. And I know Corey's going to segue, but it looks like Brother Quarterman has a question.
I was just going to say, and I should have said it when Brother Booth asked his question, but you're all going to be moving away from the threat. And how many people are moving towards one exit may dictate how you move. Those that are in here providing the security are going to be moving to the threat. Okay? In that situation where lethal force is being used, you want to try to mitigate or lessen your exposure to that. Does that make sense? Okay? Yes.
I want to just follow up on something that, just want to follow up on something that Barry said just a minute ago. When we announced, about a few weeks ago, when we discussed as a bishopric that we were going to keep these doors open so that when we're sitting on the stand, we can see what's going on up and down the hall. Who's ever in these back rows here can see what's going on in the foyer. I love that Barry sits back there, but he's not here all the time on Sundays due to work, and so someone needs to sit back there in that overflow so that they can see out that door.
all 3 weeks that we have implemented this policy, members have stood up and closed these doors, and we've had to get up and reopen the doors and explain. It's hard to change our mindset. And when I explained to a couple of the different people why we were leaving the doors open, they rolled their eyes. I did not. You did not. You did not. But they rolled their eyes kind of like, oh, you guys are, you know, drama. But we need to change our mindset when it comes to that.
Is that kind of like Sister Ayers playing the postlude music when the announcements haven't been made yet?
Exactly the same.
Okay, Brother Ruth thought that they were going slow. I think they were going fast. There's so many of us that are not mobile. What is the best thing you suggest for us?
It's a great question. And again, if I'm sitting in, I hate to say it like this, but break the room into quadrants. If I'm in that corner, I'm going out that door. If I'm over here in this corner, on this side of the room, in the front, I'm probably going to shoot for that door.
Barry, can you just repeat the question?
The question was, if you're sitting, depending on where you're sitting, some people were moving quickly, some people were moving not so quickly. Which way do I go?
So each ward's has a different demographic, and that's one of the demographics we have in our ward. That's just something that we're going to have to work with. You move as quickly as you can, or you hide as quickly as you can and try to get cover as quickly as you can based on your individual situation.
Brother Stubbs had something.
First of all, if there's already an active shooter, going to a door might be the worst thing you do. But these oak benches are better than the flesh of the body. These are pretty good oak benches.
And you touch on an important point that they made in that video is that's a decision you're going to have to make in that instance. Am I better off to hide and try to conceal myself, or am I better off trying to run? Or am I better off fighting it? That's the decision you're making in that heat of the moment.
And Corey, I just want to.
I'd like to say one more thing.
Yes.
Oops, sorry.
For those of you that think you're slow, when adrenaline kicks in, you'll become a 20-year-old.
So I also want to segue off that because I just want to bring up we're using a scenario which is very common, very like a sacrament meeting. What if we're in the second hour? Now we've got a group of, say, 30 in here, and we've got a group of 30 or 40 upstairs. What's their option? They're not going to just pick up and run. It might be this is where they hide, correct? Wedge the door. Corey and I have talked about this. We're going to look into some options. I'm a huge fan of the sleeve that goes on the door breaks. I'm also a fan of the wedges that can go underneath the door. Those have a cost with them, but we'll explore that later. In the meantime, go with what you got. According to the video, barricade the door with everything you got. There's a half a dozen chairs in there. The biggest thing is turn off the lights.
Turn off the lights, silence your phones.
And get everybody out of line view. You got to understand, and this is a weird concept to bring up, but the bottom line is that person, your threat, is going to have the same things happening to them physiologically that we are. They're going to have tunnel vision. They're not going to hear as well. Okay? So if they go over and the door's just jammed and it's dark and they can't see anything, they're going to move on. Very, 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 and I would say maybe 2 or 3 that I've read about, where somebody came to a door, unless they were looking for a particular person, worked on the door, they moved on. They always move on. So if you're a primary teacher or you're in a classroom, hey man, unless I'm on the classroom at the end and I know I can shoot out the Relief Society door and start running down the street, great. But if not, if I'm specifically if I'm upstairs, and Brother Stubbs, you know I keep trolling by here. Ever since I worked security, the kids have been on my mind, seminary classes, etc. and we'll touch base on some of the things we've done in the meantime. But you're going to have to, that's probably the best case scenario, is to hide. Or if they can hear the person, you know, down on this end of the building, having everybody, you know, their kids or whatnot, shoot out there. But if it was me in a class with a bunch of little people, I'm going to get them all to be as quiet as I can, turn off the lights, and bar the door. That's the best case scenario I have for you, yes. Wait.
I work at Mitchell, and we always have our drills and all the kind of things for different scenarios. What can we do at church to educate and maybe prepare the kids for a situation here?
So Barry, just real quick.
Yeah.
School teachers that work in elementary schools and middle schools, how often do you
Quarterly.
train active shooter?
Quarterly.
Just quarterly? Is that correct, Sister Sanford? Quarterly, would you say?
There's fire drills, our fire drills are monthly, and then it was a quarterly disaster drill.
Yeah, I just did a shelter in place drill today.
Okay.
As far as like adult training.
Okay.
So,
Has anybody
Corey,
read the handout?
to answer your question, I think that's something that, as a committee, we're going to have to talk with Bishop to say, hey, how do we get these little guys, you know, can we practice, hey, we're going to play the quiet game? I mean, I know it's weird, kind of weird. Our children are much more educated on it than us adults. That's a fact.
So I would say initially, they're going to understand the concepts, probably better than some of us, but as teachers, maybe reinforce where the exits are, talk to them about not opening doors and going outside, you know, leaving them secure. But there's other things that we're considering implementing, not just leaving the doors open. But the idea of having full-time ushers, okay? Because our biggest advantage in this kind of a situation is catching it as early as possible. We don't want those doors closed, and our first sign of a threat is when they come in, guns a-blazing. Wouldn't it be better if we had someone out in the foyer who was looking outside, or maybe had someone roving the exterior and could pick up on that threat before it's here?
So, go ahead.
So that was the only other thing that I was going to mention too is I'm not really excited to see that part, but when we talk about like what the actual threat for each door is, I mean, because the chances of them coming through the front door of like a vehicle, like we've seen so many times in the middle, then going through the back door.
So we have advantages and disadvantages to our building, and each building does. Our building has an advantage of having stairs on the south side, the main entrance, and the east side into the family history. That's an advantage that could prevent vehicles like the Michigan Chapel. Okay, but we also have a second story that most chapels don't have, and we don't have any exits from the second floor. So if you got to a situation where you had to fight, a consideration may be taking out that window, and it may be a better option to go out that window rather than face what's coming in.
So,
Okay.
also, this is just to the congregation, and Quarterman, if you got another question, I'll be more than happy to field them. You know, whatever you want to ask, I'm more than happy to hit with. But something that this conversation spurred was when I was at again, at a synagogue with the preschool, we had Fusion. So they, since I was the security director, Fusion recognized me and I could file reports. So if somebody, and I'll talk about this and kind of segue into the next spot, but I was able to communicate with Metro, because that was the area we were in, and they were able to say, hey, we've got a potential problem in your area, and they could also let us kind of brief us because they had a community officer. We don't have some of the resources in Boulder City that Metro has, but the bottom line is, it made me think, hey, maybe I should be in, see it as a security, whatever, person for the ward to see if I can inquire and see if I can get a Fusion contact. It shouldn't be tough, especially because currently I still am employed, by law enforcement, but I want to see if I can develop that for the next security director after that. Fair enough? Yeah.
Yeah, so Barry, the second part of that was Sister Stubbs was asking, you know, like in this scenario, I feel faster than this person or slower than that person. I think that's what we're learning tonight, is that this is going to be an ongoing thinking project.
Absolutely.
Is that no matter where you sit or what classroom you're in or whatever, you need to take the time, especially since we're doing this
Yes.
week, every week we're sitting in the same seats, we're going to the same classrooms. What I would say is the follow-up on this needs to be, if you have any questions about what to do in your scenario, then that's when we can take this back to Corey and Barry
Absolutely.
and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or I'm thinking this, you know, how do you think I could do this better or differently or whatever else?
And so
Tonight is just about getting you thinking about this and how you're gonna change your behavior, paying attention to things going forward. You know, maybe Sister Stubbs is gonna start wearing tie-up shoes so that she can run faster, or, you know, she's
Well,
gonna.
And no, but this is
She's
a good
gonna
point.
start bringing a cane with her, or
The whole
you
point
know,
of
so
this meeting tonight
things are
was
gonna
to
change
start a
dy-
conversation.
Yeah.
The whole point of the meeting was to start a conversation, to start a mindset, and to start to be just more vigilant as members. That's exactly what we've done. And just so you know, Brother Stubbs went out of town, and I can't remember what it was. I can't remember if it was a birth of a grandkid or a wedding or something cooler than being here. But he asked me to sub in for seminary, just to hang out and watch the foyer. Something I did that I was like, okay, cool. I get here, I walk the perimeter, I pull checked every door. Then I was like, okay, so I'm sitting out in the front. It's only a couple days. Since then, I'm like, hey, I'm going to work. It's that way. I can't stay because I start at 7 and they need somebody till about 7:30. But I think he's seen me at least a half a dozen times. I buzz slow. Sometimes I buzz up the alleyway and just look at the back of the building. These are routines that we can do as members that will help us to where if somebody's looking, they're like, nah, no, I'm going to pick somewhere else. Okay? And I'm not saying that I want to push our problems onto somebody else, but that's ultimately we want to secure the facility. So, in the same light, I have a friend that works Moapa. He now drives down. He lives like 3 doors away from me. He comes home at about 6:30. So I have him, I said, hey bro, can you do me a favor and just troll slowly down 5th Street? And so today I buzzed and waved at him and he gave me the old, you know, as he came down. So a law enforcement car is buzzing the street. Jill and I, when we were talking about this with Corey, she reached out to the police department and says, hey, do you have something like this where the officers can just sit in the parking lot during sacrament meetings, you know, or on the street? They don't have to come in, but just buzz the area. And not just our congregation, but other congregations in our community. And so we started that conversation. So good things are happening from this, and good things are happening from this not just for us as church members, as saints, but also for different church members in other congregations throughout Boulder City. And so that's a good thing. I also just wanted to emphasize we spent the lion's share on active shooter type threats, what we just call an active threat. I love Stubbs, but if he came in with a samurai sword, that to me would be just as terrifying as an active shooter, okay? Because it's a threat. But the bottom line is, but there's also a huge difference, and I hope you paid attention to that, between that and a disturbance. We've had several disturbances where somebody's wandered into the foyer, and we just kind of, hey, what's cracking? What's going on? You know, and they were handled very subtly. Okay, so these people are there. Will we develop an usher plan? That's something that Brother Quarterman is going to have to kind of coordinate, see if that's something with Bishop if we want to do. It's a great idea. There's also something else, and because I want to transition and get off this and get over to Corey for the EMS, because something that, Corey, this was up next on yours, is what to expect from fire department and law enforcement. We reached out, to be perfectly blunt, there may not be a big police convergence here. There may be only 6 officers total on a Sunday. And if 1 or 2 of them wrapped up, what are we really getting at? And this is something, again, not too scared, but just to inform you and to think, if I'm upstairs, if I bar a door, how long is it coming? So I jumped in my car and raced from Jill's parking lot up here as fast as I could legally, but it took me about a minute or two, and that is an eternity in something that's happening violently. That is an eternity. So the reality is, Sister Stubbs, you're slow moving, good, keep moving, because this ain't over yet. You know what I mean? That's fine. But it's just something that all of us need to wrap our head around, that law enforcement, and when they come in, they are not going to care that you're sitting there wounded. Their only thought is go find the threat and neutralize it immediately before it causes any more people harm. Okay? So one of the things, and it's a horrible thing when they brought in children, I'm like, that was a dirty trick. But when we used to do multi-agency counterterrorism stuff, they would bring kids in all with fake blood paint and have them just screaming. And you'd see officers come in and they're like, oh, that's not normal. And so, but just so you know, they literally train them to run right past all that to get to the threat. Okay, something I just want you to know, that way you're not trying to paw at them because they got no use for that right now. Their job is to do that. Hey, where's the medics at? Well, until that gets secured, normally FD is not going to roll in, correct? I just want to, I mean, they're going to want to, but they're not, probably not until the threat's been neutralized. Okay, so that's just something to expect from law enforcement and EMS response. But I think now is the time we turn over to talk about triage, or did you have more to add to that, Corey?
No, I think it's covered, and Sam can enlighten us a little bit more of what FD's response is going to be like. So,
We got one question here from.
I just had a quick comment. 15 years ago, when I was in the North State, they routinely, especially at state conference, we had priesthood in the parking lots and ushers at every meeting back then. That was 15 years ago. So it may not be. Do they on state meetings? Well, it might not be a bad idea for their show.
Yeah, and that's part of the conversation I'm going to start.
Just one last comment. We also received communication from church a while ago about not letting kids walk by themselves to the bathroom or anywhere else. So maybe that's something we should also, because then they can't be wandering out the doors and opening doors for people. Yeah, so.
So as far as EMS and fire response, I don't have a lot more that hasn't been covered. We're trained to hold short, is what it's called. We hold short till the threat is neutralized. So, like already been said, you know, you're going to have police personnel, law enforcement personnel running through here just trying to neutralize the threat to stop the killing, essentially. So things that like we could do, what I was thinking about talking to you guys about is, you know, those that are injured around us, just giving them a better shot, right? So thinking about creating tourniquets with belts, with ties, things like that. If people have wounds on their arms or anything like that, you know, it's all going to be, well, we're talking active shooter, so we're talking about penetrating traumas. So you're going to be packing wounds, using a shirt, using a sock, using whatever you can to pack that wound, and putting direct pressure on it until somebody can come help you.
We were talking about education for that.
Yeah.
Stop the bleed classes.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
that's something we could do. Like we could go into a big long triage class, and you know, when we're running into a situation like this, we're trained to assess people in 10 seconds. We're looking for viable people to help and extricate them from the property. It's not a fun thing to have to think about going through, but it's something that we have to do. So even if somebody appears to be breathing, but they're breathing rapidly and they've got significant injuries, we're gonna pass them by. We're gonna go find somebody who is more viable, who we can get help to. So yeah, we could go through, you know, and have a class of actually how to pack wounds and how to apply that pressure the right way. When we're tying tourniquets, that's a super easy way to prolong somebody's life and give them a better shot. So tie it high and tight. If you remember anything, high and tight.
And I just want to say on that is, he's not trying to gloom and doom it, but the reality is, how many fire department personnel are going to be able to respond to this incident? There may be more casualties than firefighters.
Correct.
So the reality is, if we can train ourselves to help other members, that could be a life-saving difference. Correct?
Yeah. Especially if we're like in second hour, right? And we're all split up, and maybe a shooter's gone through a couple rooms, and somebody's injured in there, and you know, you can do a lot of good for somebody by just staying there, doing a couple things, tying a tourniquet, packing a wound, you know, and stopping the bleeding. That's the biggest thing for these traumas.
So two things to take off this is, number one is we are going to look into trying to create that kind of class. There is places that offer those classes kind of regularly if you wanted to go to them, but the bottom line is, if we could, for our members, conduct that class, that would be awesome.
Yeah. I mean,
I
brought my little first aid kit here. This is what I carry around when I go on trips and stuff. It's just got a few things in here, but.
And I'm happy you brought that up, because something else that Corey and I discussed, and obviously it's going to have a cost, so it's going to have to be talked to with the bishop, is at the synagogue we had a huge, like, mass casualty trauma kit central, and then we had two smaller kits tertiary. One was on the end of the preschool, and then one was over on another chapel. But the bottom line is, because there's a lot of property here at this building, a couple of big kits centrally located would be huge. And then if people knew, okay, underneath the, I don't know, back by the AV stuff is a huge trauma kit, and then we'll just say 20 people were educated on how to use it, that is a game-changing element that other incidents have not had. Correct?
Correct. Yep.
So that's something that's, again, the conversation got started. How do we fix it? What can we do to implement it? We just wanted to bring you together to say, hey, we're not just throwing you to the wolves. These things are happening, and again, to dissuade you from falling to the father of fear, planning that into where I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that.
Yep.
Quick question, do we have an AED?
That's a great question. So we do have an AED, but do we have fire extinguishers in the building? And do you know where they are? Or are you going to be the guy that's running up and down the hall? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Right? So there's an AED in the foyer. That's a great question, because that's a huge one. And then, yes, where the phone used to be. Because there's a great story about the phone, if you ever want to ask Jill about the phone. Great story. I'm telling you, that's a humdinger. But more importantly is the AED's there. There's a fire extinguisher over by the janitor's closet. There's a fire extinguisher down at the end of the hall by the Relief Society room.
Somebody has a cardiac arrest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I'm sure fire code says we got to have them every 50 some odd feet or whatever.
So what we're going to do is the emergency committee's going to map the fire extinguishers in the building and have a handout so that you're aware of that. So that's in the works.
Well, as well as that, and then also you can kind of help, we could help by saying, hey, what quadrant am I sitting in? If I'm, you see the little stitch in here. If I'm up in this corner, I'm going that way, that way, that way, that way. That way we all kind of have a direction. And again, that's not the 100% plan. It's just simply something that we have to go, I'm going that, it's close, I'm going this way. You know what I mean? It's something to put in your mind so you can start to play the what-if game.
One more thing. I can't stress enough, like the fire department and the police department aren't going to come unless we call them. So sitting here, it's really easy to say, oh yeah, I'm going to call 911. Like that's so easy to think, but when this is happening and you're the lucky one that's able to make it out the door, call 911 right away. You know, you might just, it's kind of like save yourself, you know, everybody, you run out the door and you want to just get away from the building as far as you can. I totally get that, but we can't come and we can't help until you call us. We don't know this is happening. So like that's really cool that you can text. You know, you don't have to call, but yeah, if you're one of the lucky ones that can manage to get out and get your phone and activate the 911 system ASAP.
Time matters.
Yeah.
I have an experience in my neighborhood back in California that we had an emergency in our neighborhood, and we were getting ready to leave for work, so our mindset wasn't on this emergency or anything like that. But my daughter ran into the house and she said, call 911. And I said, what's the number to 911? Like, my mind just went blank. So I think I was just panicked. And so I had a personal experience with that when you're in that situation, your mind just goes blank.
So we have the privilege, or not the privilege, but part of our job is training it. And so we kind of get ourselves out of that feeling. I associate it with opening the blinders. Like, imagine a horse with blinders on. The more you practice it, the more you're thinking about it and going over a plan, those blinders are going to open up. But if you've never been in that situation and undergoing that kind of stress, you may not know how you're going to react when it's actually happening.
It was very shocking to me because I was like, I didn't talk to this little 911. But when she ran in and said, call 911, I really
And exactly. And so the reality is, and the best way you can do that is again, and it sounds so cheesy, but it's scenario training, it's reality-based training, is creating, so all of a sudden you're sitting there, just as because that's kind of your spot, right? I know. And, okay, and we're going to change this scenario, all right? You see somebody get hit by a car out front. You want to call 911. Okay, that's I just saw that happen. Oh man, I'm going to call 911. Just pull out your phone and just think 911. And then what are you going to say? Because a lot of people just 911 operator. How can I help you? You know what I mean? They're like, just walk it through. If you can, again, crawl, walk, run, right? Crawl through it a couple times in your scenario to get your mind to get off the pinwheel of, I have no idea what's going to help me survive this, to, oh, I did that last week. You know what I mean? And walk through it. Walk through that scenario. Okay, you got it, Mike. Good deal.
My comment goes right along with hers. We were in a situation where there was a group of teenagers. We weren't there, but our son was, and he ended up getting injured. And the kids were so freaked out. It was in a car accident, a truck. Anyway, the kids were so freaked out, they could not call 911. There were several of them. They could not call 911. So they did something, though, that was good, that maybe is a good thing for us to know, is they found someone that could. They ran to a neighbor and had them call it. And so, same situation, some people are going to be more calm than others. And if you're not able to do it, remind someone else to.
Good point. All right, Corey, that talked about first aid, tourniquet, direct pressure. The last one left was any other questions? I mean, yes, ma'am.
So I keep going back to that, the video where the people are looks like they're maybe in a kitchen or something, and they're getting ready to kind of try to barricade, and they're starting to grab some weapons and stuff. And there's that one woman that's screaming and crying and yelling. If we had somebody like that, is it okay to knock them out or to gag them?
No.
That's where
This
fight
is
comes
church.
into play.
This is
If
church.
you feel like you can't run, you can't hide, then you fight. Oh,
That
I
wasn't
thought
her
you said
question,
had a-
Corey. Her question was, if
Oh.
it's time to fight, and you got somebody that won't shut up and gives up your location.
She's screaming and yelling while the guy's coming down the hall, and you knock her out and shut her up.
Well, I completely, I'm gonna.
Let the
blame that.
Spirit guide you.
Thank you, Sister Ely.
It's a logical question. Do I want to, go to sleep? No, I don't want to cause a casualty to, it's a legitimate question. The best thing I think we can do is calm them, tell them to shut up. Shut up or we're going to die. Shh.
Yeah, and that's a legitimate
You know what I mean?
scenario. It's a legitimate scenario, because.
Yeah.
You might want to, but.
You got a question in the back?
Yep.
Actually, more of a comment. I don't know if all phones do it, but iPhones have, if you push the button 3 times, the power button 3 times, it will call 911. So if you forget, just.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to hyper-focus on the 911s because honestly, I like to think I don't take my phone to church. Some members be like, hey, this is my opportunity, this is my hour to get away from my phone. So they may not have their phone with them. Some folks will just take off running and not have their phone with them. So there's all sorts of, but you're absolutely right. Can I text 911? Sure. Can I hit the button 3 times? I'm thinking if I even scream, Siri, call 911, I think that might actually work. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to have that on my phone.
Just don't take it for granted that somebody else has already called.
Correct. Correct.
One more thing I wanted to say, Barry, is as we're seeing with all these questions and the thoughts that are coming up, this is exactly what we were hoping would come out of this meeting, is people thinking about these different situations. And, when you're in that situation where there's somebody that's hysterical, everybody's going to play a role. Not everybody's going to be a fighter. Some people are going to hide even when there's a chance to run away. People are going to make different decisions, and one of those decisions might be to just be hysterical and not functional. That's part of our job when we're in these situations, and what we're asking you to think about is, can I console somebody? Can I help somebody? Can I pack a wound? Can I, do these different things? And unfortunately what's happened is over the years, we've had committees, we've had systems in place to take care of all these things, but the threat is just growing. And so that's why we're having to reach out to more and more members, is it's not something that just a few people in the congregation can take care of now. We're asking more people to be open-minded about scenarios that you're going to see, things that are going to happen potentially going forward. And so it's not a bad idea to have these thoughts and to think about these things. My daughter leaned over and said, we love Glenna. What would we do with Glenna? How do you triage that situation? Well, I'm going to go over there and make sure her brakes are off, and I'm going to push her down the aisle. We have to think about all these different things. We have people in our ward that are struggling to move right now. How are we going to get them out of this building? So that's what we're thinking about is, A, what can I do in this situation? If it's run and get out, get out. If it's hide, hide. Know what your abilities are. Think about these situations. One of the things that we're trained on when we go through first aid training every year is, if you're the first one on the scene, you yell out, call 911, because you're probably not thinking about calling 911 yourself. You're thinking about, how do I assess what's going on? So yelling out to people around you, call 911. That person who's around you that hears you, that's capable of doing that in the moment, is going to be the one that calls. So we're all going to have different roles. We're all going to do different things. We're not going to be expecting the Relief Society to put up a fight against every threat that comes into the building. We all have different roles pertaining on we're going to have kids that step up. We hear about it, the people who came across, the pioneers that came across, we had kids that stepped up and carried people across the rivers. We have situations where, that's why we invited these children. They have more training than we have. They're smarter. It's been ingrained in them for years what to do in these situations. We're just learning about it. But don't let that stop you from thinking about these scenarios, playing them out in your mind every once in a while, not to the point where they consume you or keep you up at night, but think about them and what you would do in those situations. And that's why we wanted everybody, as many people as here as we could get about it, is think about it. Come up with some questions. We'll have classes. We'll do the trainings that you guys want. We'll arrange for whatever needs to happen so that everybody feels comfortable coming back into church every Sunday feeling just like you did before.
One thing to keep in mind when you call 911, our dispatch center only has 2 dispatchers on duty at any given time. So if 10 of us are lucky enough to call at the same time, the first 2 are going to get through, the other 8 are going to get failed over to Metro's dispatch center. So when you give the address, make sure you include the word Boulder City, because otherwise they'll try to send you to 916 5th Street in Las Vegas. And give as much information as you can, knowing that there's only 2 dispatchers on duty. So if you do end up getting the Metro Dispatch Center, they need more information because they're not familiar with our community.
Is our address printed in the bulletin?
916 5th Street?
So I don't know in your trainings when you have it with a group of people, but the assumption is when you're fleeing to safety. But it may not be safe outside. There could be a setup, there could be a trick. I don't know what your response is to that.
And that's a great point. But I don't want to go down the rabbit hole because we could what if that one all night long, literally all night long. Bottom line is, if somebody comes in here and throws a backpack in the cultural hall and then starts dealing with something over here and then sets off the secondary, that is so next level stuff that
So Barry, to make it simple, don't assume
right.
that the only threat is what you're fleeing from. Continue to be aware, continue to be vigilant. We'll have to establish rally points, right, because we want to account for everybody as well. And those are going to be part of the plan that the emergency committee is going to be working on. But that's a very good point, because there may be more than one threat. So, thank you, Brother Barlow. Another example, if we're talking about our youth, one of the more recent active shooters was the one that took place at the Catholic school in Minneapolis. And does anybody remember what those children did? The older children that had had more training protected and calmed and soothed the younger children, even sometimes at their own expense. Some of them were injured. So we have to give our kids some credit, right? And they may be better trained than we are in the end.
This may, as you know, I was late, as everybody saw, so this may have already been covered. Is there a thought, or maybe part of this whole conversation is going to be part of it, but what I was thinking about is, again, thinking of second hour, everybody's kind of in their group, right? Primary, all the teachers and the kids are there. Sunday school, everybody's there. And so I almost wonder if there's a really, really basic, simple version, but maybe a action plan for if an event occurs and you're the primary presidency or a teacher or whatever, what's your mission? Obviously to protect the kids, but what's that game plan? If you're in the Relief Society room and it's Relief Society meeting, event happens, what's the game plan there? So I don't know if we're going to get that granular, because that might be, I'm just thinking, because I was in primary for a while, I'm like, okay, if something's popping off on this end, I may not know right away, of course, because I may not hear it, but I need to know that my mission is I'm with the primary kids and I'm creating a little strategy amongst the other teachers to whatever, get to safety, whatever it is.
So yeah, I think there's a responsibility that goes along with being a primary teacher or being in the Relief Society as an instructor or a presidency when something like that happens, right? Yeah, if you're in a classroom and you're a teacher and you hear a threat and that's what you perceive it to be, is an active shooter, then barricade that door. Get your kids away from the door where they can't be seen. Turn off the lights. Silence phones. And, and hope and pray that that threat doesn't continue to come towards you. If it does, then you may have to make other decisions, and find an exit or fight if it comes down to that as a last resort. And like we talked about, if the classroom's on the second floor, we don't have an exit on the second floor. A last resort may be that you have to take out that second floor window. Right? You do. And I'm talking about if it's right on top of you, right? But Bishop Booth is exactly right. We have stairs to exit, but it doesn't exit us from the building. Okay? It just gets us to another area, and hopefully it's safer and you're running away from that threat. Because what's the first thing in the plan? Run. If you have the opportunity to run, you're running, right? If you don't have the opportunity to run, or you don't have the ability to run, you're hiding, trying to gain cover, right? And as a very last resort, then you may have to resort to fighting. Well, that's what I just mentioned, but that's part of the plan that we have to come up with, right? Absolutely.
This was just to rip the Band-Aid off. Treatment starts over the next several months of getting the different classes to fix this. And that way everybody's like, hey, they actually got that squared away there. And that's our plan, ultimately.
Okay. Yes.
Sister Lagan.
So we're all a loving ward. We all are very supportive of each other. But this is a litigious society, unfortunately. And so is there something like a Good Samaritan law or something that helps protect all of us as volunteers that attend these classes, that are trying to give this kind of aid, so that if something goes wrong, they can't say that, well, in the emergency task force that taught us, they didn't teach us that very well, so it's now the church's fault because they didn't teach me and this scenario happened. So is there something that, we're all volunteering to do this and we want to do it the right way, but should we be worried about that?
So yes, there are Samaritan laws as long as you're not practicing outside of your expertise, training, and I think it's something else. Scope, thank you. I know there's official words. And he would know a lot more about that than I would, but I just know that, for example, I've attended CPR classes, so yeah, I'm pretty much good to go there. I'm not going to trach somebody. You know, it's outside of my, and packing wounds, that's pretty cut and dry. I mean, you pack the wound and then turn a tourniquet as long as I don't wrap it around his neck, which then it would go into, honestly, but it would go into, were you ever trained to do that? No. Well, now you're on the hook. So, but that's a great point because people do sue people. And I guess in a weird way, I want to circle back to the whole weapons thing. And that's why I stopped. It was because I'm like, hey, the policy does not support that. So I stopped, you know what I mean? So I don't think there's any policies against first aid and helping. There's definitely Samaritan laws that cover people as long as it's not totally wildly outside of the scope or training that you did receive. But I think we're good. I think we'd be good there, but that's a good point.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that seek out and get as much training as you can as you begin to think more about this. And Barry and I have had this discussion a lot. Some of us live in a realm that if they were present in this type of situation and didn't take action, maybe they couldn't live with themselves. That's an individual question that you're all going to have to ask yourselves. Okay? So, just never give up. Be as prepared as you can. We're all praying that it never comes to us and that we never have to deal with this. But I can tell you by getting more training and being better prepared, you're going to feel better about the situation, right? You can feel better about the situation. So, you good?
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Who's giving our closing prayer?
Brother Ormore's going to give us our.
Oh, you are right on time for that, mister. All right, good job, you.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for this wonderful day we've had today, grateful for this opportunity we had to meet as ward members and a ward family to discuss security and practices and procedures and safety and so on. I'm grateful for the expertise of individuals in this room and in our ward that are able to share their knowledge and skill set with all of us so that we can be better prepared in the case of an emergency or an event that may occur. We ask that thy spirit be with all of us, that we can continue to learn and grow and not live in any fear, but know that with thee and with the Spirit we can do all things and we have greater capacity. We ask as well that there always be a blessing and spirit on this building and in our little corner of the world, that we can be safe and be able to enjoy our times with families and so on, but that we can also be vigilant and keep our eyes open as needed in the world that we live in today. And we ask for thy guidance and discernment of the Spirit to know when times to act are necessary and when they're not, and what we can do best to be prepared for those events and for future events. Father, we're so grateful again for all that was given us. We're grateful for this gospel, grateful we're able to worship thee in this great country and for the freedoms that we enjoy, and help us to do our part to protect those freedoms and continue to propel that forward and allow thy gospel to continue to grow across the world. We're again grateful for all that we have and these things we pray for and give you thanks for. In the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ, amen.